On District Wire News, Penn State University rocked by scandal. We'll go there for the latest update. And we'll take a look at how American University dealt with scandals over the last 2 decades.
And more young people are moving to the district in search of jobs in this bad economy. But why DC? Our reporter has the details. District Wire News starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Julie Grace Brufke.
And I'm Sarah Parnas. The Penn State football coach accused of sexually abusing young boys has been released on bail. He's been told to stay away from children, but his house is right next door to an elementary school. CNN's Mary Snow has more.
When he was charged with 40 counts of sexually abusing children, Jerry Sandusky was released on $100,000 bail. One condition, the former Penn State defensive coordinator was told not to go near children. But take a look where his house is located. This is the playground for Lamont Elementary School. Right over here is Jerry Sandusky's house, and from his back porch, he has a clear view of it. The administrators at the elementary school say local police reached out to them following Sandusky's arrest. The district superintendent is quoted saying the school, which runs through the 2nd grade, has taken additional administrative action to ensure our children are safe. To be clear, Sandusky's never been accused of harming random children. Rather, he is alleged to have molested young boys after developing close relationships with them through Second Mile, the charity he founded. Sandusky's maintained his innocence. The road to his home is blocked off, and private property signs on his lawn went up this weekend after police say a cinder block was thrown through a window. Nearby neighbors question why he's out on bail.
It baffles my mind.
I think presumption of innocence, we all like to believe in that, and we do in this country, but I think there's a level of protection that a neighborhood and a community is entitled to.
Melissa and Carl Anderson have 2 little boys. Carl was such a fan of Sandusky's at one time, he had an autographed limited edition copy of Sandusky's book, Touched.
For me at least, that alternates between anger and sadness, really. I mean, it really is a loss of kind of community, wholesale community innocence.
Have you seen more police here in the last week?
Yes.
The Andersons, for one, want to see a stiffer bail. And now a new revelation about the judge who set the bail. The judge's former law firm listed her as a volunteer for Second Mile. CNN's legal analyst, Jeffrey Toobin.
The judge certainly should have raised the issue, disclosed her connection to Second Mile, so that the parties in the case could decide whether they wanted to ask her to recuse herself.
Mary Snow, CNN, State College, Pennsylvania.
This scandal has been a PR disaster for Penn State University, but American University has dealt with some scandals that have made national headlines. Jade Ryan is live in the studio to talk about how the university is prepared for future scandals. Jade?
As the sexual abuse scandal at Penn State continues to unfold, American University faculty and staff remember a number of scandals at AU over the past couple decades, and the ways in which the university handled them. In the spring of 1990, Richard Brunson abruptly resigned from his position as American University president. Virginia police were investigating a series of obscene phone calls made to women advertising babysitting services that were traced back to Brunson's private university telephone line. Brunson eventually pled guilty to 2 misdemeanor charges of making obscene telephone calls from his office. He was sentenced to 60 days in jail, but instead spent 3.5 weeks at the Sexual Disorders Clinic at Johns Hopkins University, where doctors said his actions may have been linked to Brunson being sexually abused as a child.
When anything like that happens, when there's anything sort of unseemly about a character who's especially the leader of an institution, it sort of washes over the whole institution. And so I think AU had some, damage control and reputation repair to build on.
3 years later, in 1993, American University hired him back as a professor in the physics department. He retired 5 years ago and was granted Professor Emeritus status, the same status Jerry Sandusky was granted after he retired from Penn State's football program. A Professor Emeritus status often gives professors continued privileges after retirement. This was how Sandusky was able to keep an office and have continual access to the locker rooms and campus. Another scandal happened in 2005 when Benjamin Ladner was forced to resign as American University president after he was investigated for misspending university money on wine, expensive restaurants in D.C. and abroad, and chauffeurs who ran personal errands, according to USA Today.
I think AU allowed a little bit of crisis creep to get in, so the scandal became the story about AU for far too long rather than the action taken to deal with it.
Recently, the university has changed some of its policies on sexual assault because of national media attention after a controversial article published in the Eagle last year.
That required a lot of people to want immediate action.
Daniel's position didn't even exist prior to the publication of the Eagle article, which just goes to show you that positive changes can arise out of scandals like the ones at American University and the current one at Penn State. Back to you, Julie Grace.
Thanks, Jade.
National unemployment for October was 9%, but in the same month, the Census Bureau says D.C. has attracted more young adults since the recession started. What jobs are out there for youth in the district? Laura Olson has the story.
Yesterday, President Obama took his jobs plan to Hawaii.
The single greatest challenge for the United States right now, and my highest priority as president, is creating jobs and putting Americans back to work.
According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in each of the last 3 years, 7,000 people between the ages of 25 and 34 flocked to D.C. in search of jobs. This is because, unlike much of the nation, businesses in Washington seem to be hiring. An American University senior transferred from the University of Mary Washington.
I actually transferred here because D.C. has a lot more opportunities for after you graduate, and Fredericksburg, Virginia is out in the middle of nowhere.
Since transferring, Samantha has had 2 internships with National Geographic and hopes to stay in D.C. after graduation. Career advisor Jennifer Carnegie says that the federal government sparks industries in Washington and builds job opportunity.
But I think students see opportunities to start their careers that they don't necessarily find in other cities across the country.
School of Communications senior Madeline Chateau began interning with City Dance, a local nonprofit, last year.
And then I got hired in the fall as a social media coordinator, and I'm part-time now. And they offered me full-time once I graduate if I would like to join their communications team as well as their advertising team.
Not all students are quite as lucky as Madeline, but if you keep on trying, then there should be something out there for you. Reporting from American University, this is Laura Olson for District Wire News.
Herman Cain's wife is denying sexual harassment claims against her husband. Gloria Cain told Fox News' Greta Van Susteren that the allegations are not true.
Hear such graphic allegations and know that that would have been something that was totally disrespectful of her as a woman, and I know that's not the person he is. He totally respects women.
4 women have accused Cain of harassment from his days at the National Restaurant Association. Despite the scandal, he is still leading most Republican presidential polls. The Cain campaign says donations have also increased as a result of the bad press.
The National Cathedral held their first service in 3 months yesterday. Officials closed the cathedral in August after a 5.8 magnitude earthquake shook the city. The historic church spent about $15 million to repair damages from the quake. Unfortunately for the cathedral, these damages are not covered by their insurance policy.
A D.C. woman is in critical condition after being stabbed by her husband following a domestic dispute. The attack took place near the National Cathedral on Saturday evening. The police have the man in custody, and doctors expect the woman to survive.
Officials say one D.C. man is dead today after a shooting in Northeast Washington. Police found the man on Edgewood Street around 2:30 in the morning on Monday. The man has not been identified, and there are no suspects in the case.
D.C. police think they know who is responsible for the shooting near the White House this weekend. Police issued an arrest warrant for the 21-year-old Oscar Ortega and carrying a dangerous weapon. The shooting happened Friday night when 2 cars were speeding near the National Mall. Nobody was injured.
Coming up after the break, Congress in a deadlock. The deadline for the supercommittee to cut the budget deficit is fast approaching. We have a full report and an expert in the studio to discuss what will happen if an agreement isn't reached.
And we'll tell you how the recent NBA lockout is affecting the future of NBA hopefuls here at American University. Stay with us.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا إكراه في الدين فقد تبين الرشد من الغي فما يكفر بالطاغوت. There really is no formal ordination process for an imam. In some of the American mosques, for example, it's the practice to rotate who leads the prayers from one week to another.
We have different imams that come. Dr. Ahmed is like, I think this year he's like our imam, like the person that we can really go to consult him for anything, advice, whatever.
My PhD, which I received back in 1975, was in astrophysics. And I worked I was a working scientist for many years, up until the late 1980s. And at that time I switched fields because I was dismayed at the lack of understanding of Islam that was shown by the so-called experts of Islam. When I was in third grade, they handed out 2 sets of cards. If you're a Protestant, you were to take a green card, and if you're Catholic, you were to take an orange card. Well, of course, I couldn't take either card, and so the teacher said, well, what is your religion? And I didn't even know the name of our religion. I said, I don't know. I said, Assyrian, I think. And she said, no, that can't be right. She said, ask your parents. So I went home and I said to my mother, what's our religion? And she said, we're Muslims. And I said, what's that? And she gave me a copy of the Yusuf Ali translation of the Quran. And she said, it's all in here. Read it. If you have any questions, ask me. I also spent a lot of time for my think tank, the Minaret of Freedom Institute, doing research work on policy recommendations regarding good governance, interfaith relations, countering the distortions about Islam. Well, what makes the Minaret of Freedom Institute unique is we're the only one that is dealing specifically with the relationship of Islam and liberty. Actually, there aren't that many think tanks that deal with Islam in particular. That in itself makes us one of a few. When you're involved in doing think tank work, you want to try to make a rigorous proof of whatever it is you're saying that will withstand the most serious critical questioning. When you're preaching, you simply speak about what is right and wrong as you understand it, and you try to motivate people to adopt it and to act on it. You'll find if you discuss this often enough, you're going to run across people who are going to say, oh, no, you know, on the day of judgment, God will give Muhammad special permission to intervene for his people. And the Quran doesn't really say anything that I think could be interpreted that way. I'm only reminded of what a Turkish friend once said to me, you never lose by investing in young people. In fact, there's a hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, in which he said, you are all imams. Every man is an imam to his family, and every woman is an imam to her children. فَمَا يَكْفِرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدِ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى.
It wasn't the biggest crowd in AU men's basketball history, but it wasn't the smallest either. The Eagles played their first game of the season in front of the home fans on Wednesday, an exhibition match against Randolph-Macon College. It was AU's 3rd straight year opening the basketball season against the Yellow Jackets, a Division II team from Ashland, Virginia.
They're a team that never gives up, a team that plays really, really hard. Like you saw tonight, they really get out in passing lanes and make us work.
The big question coming into tonight's game, how would the Eagles fare without star guard Vlad Moldavenu, who graduated last year? For now, it seems like seniors Charles Hinkle and Troy Brewer will share that load.
Both had 18 points to lead AU's scoring attack.
It was definitely exciting to get out on the court tonight. We've been working really hard in the off-season to get to this point. So it was definitely exciting to get the season underway.
The Yellow Jackets rallied late, but Jeff Jones and the Eagles held on for a 62-61 win.
The Eagles don't play again until next Friday night, when they travel to Richmond University. The Spiders were one of the Cinderella stories of last year's NCAA tournament, a place the Eagles hope to find themselves at the end of this year. For District Wire News, I'm Zach Drescher from Bender Arena. The Massachusetts Avenue home of the WCL houses 2,000 students, but American University wants to raise that number to 3,000. To do that, they are moving the entire school down to Tenley Circle, a place some of the neighbors remember quite differently.
My sisters all went to high school there before it was American University owned it. There was a Catholic all-girls high school there, Immaculata College.
The Immaculata Seminary was built in 1904, 82 years before AU bought the land. Those 100-year-old buildings are being preserved, but the others are not so lucky.
The three buildings, Congressional, Constitution, Federal, those three will be demolished.
And some of Tenley's neighbors are worried the law school might make traffic worse.
It's already a very trafficky area. It's not going to help, I can tell you that much. Although maybe a lot more will come by Metro, you can only hope.
Tenley is much closer to the Metro stop. That's probably the biggest advantage of the new location.
The shuttle is another step after the Metro, and that adds 15 or 20 minutes to get here. I think it would make it easier if the campus was closer to the Metro.
But help might be a long way off. The Tenley project is still in the planning phase, and construction isn't supposed to start for another year and a half.
So we are shooting for beginning construction mid-2013, and then 2 years later, in 2015, it will be completed.
The next step is for the university to take the plan before a series of public hearings. They're scheduled for November 21st and December 1st. In Tenley campus, Zach Drescher, District Wire News.
It was about as good as it gets for American University athletics. The men's soccer team was playing for the Patriot League Championship against hated rival Colgate University on AU's campus. It was an opportunity for both the team and the athletic department in general to showcase their product.
Yeah, it's always great to host. And if you're hosting in our league, in the Patriot League, that means that you've won the regular season and you finished #1 throughout the regular season. So it was certainly a great opportunity for the community to rally around the team.
But when the big day came, the crowd wasn't as big as you would have hoped.
I think it could be better. I think that people don't show up for the events. I think it's kind of disappointing, actually.
The more you have people you have in the arena, the better they feel. The better it is for the support of the coaches and student athletes. And it just brings everyone together around a rallying point that we think athletics can be for American universities.
One of the nice things is you can see a lot of the athletic teams are here to support the other athletes, but it would be nice if the student body was here, and it really doesn't seem like there's a whole lot.
The small stands at Reeves Field were full, but the crowd was mostly parents and alumni.
Some of it is that people who come here tend to be a lot more into politics than sports.
But perhaps the student body just isn't interested in the sports AU has. The Eagles are traditionally powerhouses in field hockey and volleyball, but not as competitive in more mainstream sports. It's one of the challenges the athletic department faces every day.
We don't focus on what we don't have, we focus on what we do have. And I would hope others would do that as well, because we have great stories, great coaches. Our volleyball team just won the regular season championship, had the coach of the year, player of the year, and rookie of the year in one student, as well as the scholar athlete of the year. I mean, that doesn't happen regularly, and that's something that I think everybody can embrace. It's something that people want to be engaged with, because I think once somebody comes back to campus, whether it be an alum or someone who lives in the neighborhood or a faculty or staff member, at the end of their day comes out to Bender Arena and sees these talented students and coaches competing for the university, and then also all the fun things that we try to do in and around the game to engage them, I feel like they're going to come back.
For District Wire News, I'm Zach Drescher. The technical term is piggybacking. Someone without a key waits for another person to open the door for them. With no front desk and no security officer, there is nobody to catch an intruder.
And it has been a concern of mine because we're in a city and it's pretty easy to just follow people in when they swipe in, but we haven't had problems with it before.
Most of the GW dorms are like this, apartment style, where you need a key card or a friend to let you in. It's not the tightest security, but some say it's convenient.
Obviously every once in a while somebody crazy is going to get in, but it's also nice when your friends are coming in to not have to sign them in, so I actually kind of like it.
Here at AU, all dorms have a desk attendant who checks any student who wants to get into the building.
They might complain or whine, but when it comes down to it, it's for their safety.
And that's not all. In McDowell Hall, AU added new security over the summer,
where you swipe into the door and then you have to swipe to get into the stairwell and into the elevator, to use the elevator.
Back at GW, the students still feel safe, even without any strict security.
Yeah, it would probably be safer, but I just feel like this is such a good neighborhood anyway that it doesn't really bother me.